Hello, friends. Would you describe yourself as having radiance? Our podcast guest, Gordon Creamer, would emphatically say yes. Discover more about what radiance truly means, even in life's darkest moments. Join the conversation with us, the Good News team, Lynn Shematek and Deacons John Shematek and Lauren Welch.
Gordon Creamer, welcome to our podcast, Good News. Lauren and I are both absolutely thrilled that you're joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the warm invitation.
Gordon, you are the creator of Mission Bridge and are currently serving as program director of Well for the Journey. You're a spiritual director, end-of-life doula, Reiki practitioner. Share with us what it is that seems to be a thread in your life that you want to empower people to know that they are spiritual beings becoming human beings instead of vice versa, which most of us think we are.
On a foundational level, it comes from God, the Holy One, as I refer to God or Spirit, as a gift, an authentic gift. And it's been powerful and meaningful and enlightening in my life journey of 47 years to see its unfolding. I believe at its core, that's what it means to me and how I see it as a part of my everyday and moment to moment. There's a word that's arising for me, and it has been for the last several months, when I take a moment and pause and spend some time in contemplation about that gift as it unfolds. And that word is radiance. So part of where I focus in my journey with folks, however I might be accompanying them, it could be on a retreat, it might be in spiritual companioning or guiding, it is inviting them to behold their own radiance.
Can you share what happens when people are finally able to see that? Can you share a story of when someone had an aha moment?
Yes, it happens pretty regularly and is attributed to the presence of the Spirit as I'm gathering with folks in those various capacities. It can be at Well for the Journey, where I'm privileged to work as the program director. It might be in a group or a retreat. Sometimes it's happening one-on-one, and other times it's in that communal setting, and it's powerful. Sometimes it might happen subtly, as they say, the light bulb goes off, to see how that takes its own journey of unfolding in that person's life or that group or community. It's a very rich experience as a witness to behold that, and to also continually be grateful for the opportunity to engage with others. In capacity for myself, the gratitude is deeply present because it's so life-giving and fulfilling.
I'm wondering, Gordon, about the sense of radiance, what obstacles or people put in the way of really recognizing that. I've had some folks, even on this podcast, where said, wow, you've got an aura about you. And I think that's maybe another word for what you're thinking, and they are stunned and surprised. When people come to your retreats or in the course of spiritual companioning, are they expecting something like this? Or is it a surprise?
I'm glad you're raising that question. I find this to be a phenomenon. I love words and creating descriptions for various programs or how I'm showing up in the world. As human beings, we do a lot of assumptive reading. We don't read all of our emails, even if they're short. We might be interested in something. I like the title and I sign up for it, or gosh, I just want to go on retreat. It doesn't really matter what. And again, returning back to the presence and the power of the Holy Spirit, she does great things in her work, even in preparing and planning for a program or a one-on-one session for spiritual companioning or direction. It's really the work of God that makes all things possible. If we can be open to that invitation that's ever present, that radiance can be tapped into, held, observed, celebrated, moment to moment. That doesn't always happen because things get in the way. You mentioned barriers or things of that nature. That's part of our human nature. And We are constantly bombarded with information. Things clutter up our spiritual lens of being able to recognize the spirit and the work of God in our lives and in the world. Opportunities to be with folks in deep listening helps to clear the field, helps to polish the lens that we might be looking through to glimpse that radiance. Sometimes it's about glimpsing it, and other times it's being in the radiance and aware of that radiance that leads us to positive action.
Yeah, I love that way to think of that. The other thing I'm wondering about, thinking about spiritual companioning, we use the word discernment and trying to discern. We've had other folks on the podcast talk in a secular way, even talking about discerning what their purpose is and so on. Is this radiance or this sense have a direct connection with discerning what's God's will? In your opinion, what God's will is for the...
I believe so. And that's part of my spiritual practice of being with others in that journey as a spiritual director or companion or guide. That inner radiance is always available, much like joy. Yet, because of a myriad of reasons, we aren't able to really recognize that radiance. Practices such as discernment help to return us to that illumination. Sometimes it's just being reminded that we have that radiance and all of its possibilities. And other times it's galvanizing that radiance, being grounded in it to take action in a vocational way, in a way that we are intended to by our Creator.
And how has this radiance, and I love your use of joy too, because when we recognize that we are part of that radiance, we are grateful and joy is abundant around us. How has that guided you?
This is where I can begin speaking about Well for the Journey. I love being a part of the Well community and have had the privilege to serve in various capacities over the years. We're in our 23rd year, and I first heard about the Well almost a decade ago. Started guiding programs there and served on the board and as a volunteer. And for the last almost 3 years, I have been the program director, which is such a privilege. The Well has a really important mission for the healing of the world. We focus on 3 foundations within our mission. And I'll just quickly name them. It's a deeper sense of connection to ourselves and other living beings, and ultimately to whatever name we have for that which is greater: spirit, God, the universe, or mystery. A deep sense of community, that we're not alone. Emerging from the pandemic has reminded us of the importance of community. Thirdly, spiritual nourishment, spiritual well-being, and things that sustain us on this journey of being a spiritual being in human form. To tie that to radiance, joy, and other things that are permanent that we always have access to, name countless examples of how that happens through anything that the Well is doing. It could be a program. We have a weekly reflection call on Wednesdays. We have different ways of showing up to partner with other organizations. For example, we are currently providing spiritual wellness programming for the dementia community and its caregivers to help folks, even if it's just in the moment, to realize that connection, that community, and that spiritual well-being that they are entitled to because of that inner radiance.
Gordon, most of our folks are here in the Maryland region. Can you just let people know, first of all, are the programs there? There's a variety of them, I know, and you've highlighted that. Are you still offering online access to programs? I know with COVID that happened, but where is it and how do people find it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Our current residence is in the historic Lutherville area on Seminary Avenue. We share and rent our space from Church of the Holy Comforter, an Episcopal church. Also worshiping there is a Reconstructionist synagogue, Voice of the Heart is what that means. And so we identify that we are on an interspiritual campus. And that really speaks to the identity of the Well in the types of programs that we offer, both in person, groups designed for deep reflection, sharing, and engagement, as well as online. I'm grateful for my predecessor, Jean Ann Walsh, who, when the pandemic happened, was able to help transport all of our programming from in-person to the virtual online format. About 3 years ago, when it was time to safely start gathering again in person, we said, this has opened up the well to the entire world and especially our country. We have folks that join us for online programming in 46 different states from other countries in North America. And we've even had folks as far away join online, such as South Korea and South Africa.
Wow.
Wow. How do people know about the programs at the Well? How do you publicize those?
I'm privileged to work with 4 other staff members, and each of us has our own area of responsibility. Unlike a lot of organizations, we do so much collaboratively. We make a lot of decisions together. We each bring our own gifts, our own ways of being creative. We have a weekly staff meeting where a lot of the decisions we make are decided. And it's also where I like to say that the magic happens, always holding our mission before us and creating from that place. Manager, and her name is Tammy Parwacki, what she does to promote things online. So we have a social media presence. We have a weekly email that comes out on Wednesday evenings called For Your Journey. And that's a great way to tune in and find out what's new and exciting. We'll have articles and other things related to what's happening at the well posted there. And then we have a wonderful website that is dynamic and engaging and provides a lot of different information.
That's great, Gordon. And we'll put those links in our show notes on the audio version as well as the video version of this podcast. What about you? If someone wanted to contact you about spiritual companioning or something they wanted to work with you on, is there an email address that you're comfortable releasing or that you'd prefer to be reached through?
Sure. You could easily contact me at my Well for the Journey email address. That's my first name, Gordon, Gordon, at wellforthejourney.org. I also have my own business and ministry that I've had for almost 16 years called the Mission Bridge. And that's really through which I work with folks in spiritual companioning. And sometimes folks reach out and they would like me to design a retreat or a workshop for their organization. It could be a dedicated spiritual group, church or worshiping community, some kind of spiritual wellness group, or it could be some of the retreat centers that I offer programs through, one of which is the Well. I'm very blessed for many years to be offering programs at Bon Secours Retreat Center in Marriottsville.
This crosses all sorts of spiritual boundaries. This is not restricted to any particular belief system, religion, or faith tradition.
All are welcome. There's a focus and enjoyment in my own life on diversity. Part of what flows out of our mission is an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging. That is integral to our mission. We want every person knocking on our door and coming in, whether at our center or online, to really be immersed in a sense of belonging that emerges from the connection with one's inner radiance, others, and with God through that sense of community and spiritual nourishment. And I just realized I didn't say my other email address for those that might want to have that. And that is the Mission Bridge. Can contact me through that. The Mission Bridge at yahoo.com.
Perfect. Gordon, you've had a very adventurous journey through your life and been involved in so many diverse programs, projects, and experiences. As Lauren said, we do see a common thread there. Are there any particular obstacles you encountered along the way that have informed your spiritual life and been important for you? You don't have to bare your soul, but if there's anything that was a magical moment or a not so magical moment.
Well, a lot of the fruit that I believe is born in our own lives and our spiritual lives comes through transformation. And that transformation has its deepest roots when it has involved a deep wounding or a significant experience of trauma, pain on various levels. And so for myself, a significant way that I show up in the world is in and around grief and grief work. And about 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, I had a profound experience with a deep wounding of my soul that came as a result of an experience I had with a longtime friend. It was a barrier. Pouring into that, for me, is attributed to the grace of God, this awareness of choices that I had before me, that I was led to choose compassion. And that brought me into a place of illumination about my life journey, what was most important and integral for who I am and my mission in life. Part of how I can participate in the divine mission that we're all called to. So growing out of that, everything became transformed, not just on a spiritual level and understanding that inner radiance of others and myself, but it shows up in the different contributions I try to make in every aspect of my life. There's the compassion component, but the bridge to that was grief and trying to be present to my own sense of grief, the rawness, the cascading emotions, and the greater possibility of meaning being cultivated. A lot of times when we're hurt, there's a sense of our power being absconded with or kidnapped from us. And when we are able to cultivate meaning out of something, even a dark period or era in our lives, that's where the power returns in its positive, authentic sense, is when meaning and purpose is created or realized or remembered. So that really has me tuned in the last 13 years or so to not only the relevance of grief, but the nature of it. We are created to be able to grieve, to weather all of the stations, transitions, losses, and everyday changes in our lives.
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. We certainly have lots of everyday changes these days, right?
Yes,
Right.
indeed.
We do. Gordon, along with the obstacles that you have learned from grief, what has been something that surprised you on this journey?
Well, about 4 years ago, my beloved parents died about 3 weeks apart. And for a few years before that transition in their lives, I was being made aware by grace from God that would be transpiring. And there was a choice to prepare for that or to resist it. And thankfully, I did more preparing than resisting. But there was a deep part of me that was frightened by the reality that my parents wouldn't be here any longer in the way that they were. I was very close to my mom and dad as a nuclear unit for all the years that we were together on Earth. And so even just the thought of losing them, as it is for many of us, seemed daunting. And I wondered, I didn't stay in a place of doubt about it, but I wondered not only what would life be like without them, how lonely because of who they were and the role they played in my life. Thankful that I tuned in more to the possibilities than resisting it. That was an obstacle and a gift in and of itself that also led me to experience the divine possibilities that come with an experience of grief.
So the spirit can always surprise us, right? No matter where we are or what the situation is. Thank you so much. Gordon, before we leave, is there anything else that you would like to share with us about what's going on with you or that you have learned? What do you want to leave our viewers and listeners with?
Thank you so much for your generosity and the warm invitation. I am a parishioner at St. Ignatius Roman Catholic Church in downtown Baltimore. And for many years, we've had an LGBTQ plus affirming ministry, which has invited folks who identify as part of that community, as well as family members, loved ones, and allies. A lot of incredible things God has been doing through that over the years. And I had the privilege to serve as a coordinator for 12 of those years. I'm excited to see the possibilities of our new leader and what's unfolding there. I also am a student at the Ecumenical Institute of St. Mary's Seminary. I'm in the Doctorate of Ministry program, and I'm preparing to submit my research proposal in the coming months, where I will be focusing on the experience of dementia and what it is to be a care partner with someone who has dementia. As we know, 100 different diseases and conditions cause dementia. The focus of the research at this time, the research question is, how can the experience of caregiving for a loved one with dementia be positively impacted by intentional grief work through a spiritual framework? Looking for the meaning of it, cultivating the meaning in and around having a loved one who has memory impairment, and that can be very stigmatizing in our society and culture. How can someone caregiving for an individual with dementia grieve in the ways that they are called to, paying attention to that? Grieving is not easy, and yet the divine possibilities that are made available when we make that space through the grieving. And the spiritual framework part of it is very broad, because we all are able to create meaning in our lives in various capacities. With it being spiritual, that deeper identity level, it could be related to particular faith tradition or a sense of religion, for sure. And spirituality is so much broader than that. It might be music or time spent in the sanctuary of nature. It could be embodied movement through practices like yoga or dancing. It could be a sense of connection to those divine possibilities through gardening, storytelling, lots of other areas where meaning exists. We can be reminded of and grounded in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Gordon, I personally want to thank you for being with us and giving us your presence and your time today. This has been an honor. I feel like we've been on sacred ground together. Thank you very much for everything that you are and that you've given to us today, especially.
It's really been an honor to be here and a joy. I hope that as you continue your good work in spreading this good news, both of you and all of those that you journey with are able to glimpse and live into their own radiance.
Thank you.
Thank you. And John, I want to thank all who are viewing and listening for the gift of your presence with us today. Until next time, peace and blessings.
This episode of Good News has been brought to you by Listening for Clues. For more podcasts, check out our YouTube channel or our website listeningforclues.com.